Would I be the asshole if I don't change my son's name even though it may cause him to lose an inheritance? I got pregnant while I was taking a gap year traveling. I met an older guy, nothing gross. I was 19, he was 23. We had fun. I was working in a bar to make money while I explored his city. When I got pregnant, he lost interest really quickly. I understood, but I am pro-choice. And I chose not to terminate. I went home and had my son. I also made sure to get child support. He could afford it. He did fight it though. I had to prove paternity and everything. Through that his parents found out. They are well off. They have met my son and they truly do seem to love him. They have provided gifts for his birthday and Christmas. They helped me with extra money so I could complete my university without going into debt. They have taken us on vacation with them so they could spend time with him. They aren't my biggest fans, but we are cordial to each other. 3 months ago my son's father passed away. He got drunk at his bachelor party, tripped on the sidewalk, and hit his head. And that was all she wrote. My son and I attended the funeral. We spent a week in that city so his grandparents could see him. They approached me with an offer. They had no other children or grandchildren. Their son was only 28, so he had lots of time to provide them legitimate kids. They did not say this, I'm just assuming, so they never thought about my son's name. They said that if I changed his surname to theirs legally they would make him their primary heir. I think this is dumb. He is their only grandchild and they would deny him an inheritance because of his last name. I said I would consider it, to be polite, and have left it at that. I actually have a pretty good life as it is. My family has been very supportive. And because of the whole court thing, my son's father had to have life insurance with him as the beneficiary. Would it be nice for my kid to get a big sum of money? Yes. Do I want him to have the surname of a man who didn't want him, see him, or love him? No. I have been talking to my family about it and a few of them think I'm being an asshole for giving kind of money for my son. It is generational wealth and I'm making the decision based on emotion. I think they are assholes for thinking money is the only thing that matters. I think I will tell my son's grandparents that they can talk to him about it when he is 16. He will be old enough to understand the implications but young enough not to be tied professionally to his last name. He's not likely to forgive you when he finds out what he's missed out on. And for just a surname. Yeah, his dad didn't want him, but his grandparents want to involve him as a primary heir. This is a grand move on their part and could change your son's life. Now, you have every right to choose your kid's name and they have every right to give their inheritance to anyone they choose. But if you take their deal, be sure to force them to put all their assets in an irrevocable trust the same change you change the name, because I wouldn't trust them an inch not to go back on their word with a will. NaH, no matter what you do you could be considered an AH. But could you suggest hyphenating the surnames? Are your primary parents, so he should have yours. B. I know that sometimes traveling with a child with a different surname to you can be problematic. Asked for proof that they're your child with birth certificates etc. So him having your surname would be helpful in those circumstances, and sure there's other circumstances. C. He still has their surname. D. He can then choose to amend his surname to one or the other when he's 16. Just a thought. Edit was because spacing. You're the asshole. What happens if the grandparents pass away before your son turns 16 and can decide? He could lose a very generous inheritance because of your resentment of his father. His grandparents have been kind to both your son and you. Do this for your son. You're the asshole. F that dude, but also you're kinda screwing your kid by not changing the name. That money is your child's future, and guess what, they'll probably want it regardless of yours beef. If they find out, that could also wreck yours relationship. ETA, get the bag, you can be honoring the grandparents that have been involved in your son's life, and ultimately your kid can change the name if they don't like it, but the money can allow your child to pursue their dreams without having to worry about the stress of loans, etc. You're the asshole. And if I ever found out, I wouldn't forgive you. Not the asshole, and I actually admire your choice, but I would propose a middle way by proposing a double name. They were good to you and helped you and your son out. They were there for him and you have a good bond with them. So this could be an easy solution. They would deny him an inheritance because of his last name. Isn't that what you're doing? P.S. Not the first time elitist families put conditions on inheritance. This is the least intrusive they can be doing in the future. Who he date marry will probably be in his future. Not the asshole. Don't teach your son he has to change himself at somebody else's whim to be worthy. It also is twisted that they think his money with controlling attachments is a correct way to engage with you and him. Just cause somebody has money doesn't mean they get to control you. I'm 32 and I'd change my last name if some old people were willing to give me a ton of money. In this economy, I'd trade my last name for a retirement house fund, and I can only imagine how much more fucked it'll be by the time your kid is an adult. That money can pay for debt-free college, emergency medical stuff, housing, etc. It's just a name. Your kid can always change it anyways after they die if your kid wanted to. You're the asshole. You're letting your pride get in the way of your son receiving an inheritance. They have no obligation to give your son anything. Not the asshole, and they are being very manipulative and selfish. They are basically telling their grandchild that their love for him is conditional and they don't already fully view him as family. Do you have any idea how many difficulties there can be raising a child who has a different last name than their mom? What happens if you get married and your husband wants to adopt your son? Telling them to talk to him about it when he is 16 is a good approach and will also give them time to realize that they should appreciate having a grandchild at all. Not the asshole. I think threading slowly makes sense here, as it might end up not being as simple as a name change. As the sole heir to a generational fortune, he might be expected to go to certain schools, pick a certain job, act a certain way, etc. Not the asshole. They are the for tying money to a name. If they want him to have it, they should give it to them regardless of the last name. Will it's manipulation? There's no love behind that gesture, so the ball is in your court. It's entirely your decision. Personally, I would say no. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. They should respect your decision not to want to change it. I also think loving grandparents would leave him the money anyway. I wouldn't want a different last name than my child. I think it's pretty shitty of the grandparents to make this the requirement. Not the asshole. But you can hyphenate yours theirs for the sake of the birth certificate and then not use it on official paperwork. My dad's name is hyphenated on his birth certificate, but he only uses the first last name, if that makes sense. I think I will tell my son's grandparents that they can talk to him about it when he is 16. That's probably the best thing. They're being awful and treating him as an accessory here. It's best to let him make the choice when he's old enough. Info: do they have an issue with having your last name too? I have both my mother and father's. Not the asshole. Letting your son decide is the right choice. Not the asshole. I understand they are grieving, but to hold this over you is BS. Their son does not deserve to have your son carry his name. His behavior was shitty. Your son is yours, you have raised him, and I completely understand your reservations. Plus, as a single mom myself whose child has a different last name, it is easier to have the same name. It causes less confusion for schools, doctors, etc. Letting him make the choice as a teen is the right way to go. Suggesting everyone wait until son is old enough to make his own choice is not unreasonable. I would allow for doing it sooner than 16 if the grandparents' health declines faster than that. Not the asshole. Couldn't you compromise and use both last names? Hyphens exist. But I'm in the not the asshole camp here. Way too many people in these comments who are all about the money and that is it. Not the asshole. These people are showing gifts come with big strings. Best gift you can give him will be freedom from people like this. If they use money to manipulate his name, they'll use it to manipulate other things too. Like his education, career, where he lives, etc. Plus, people can lose wealth due to misfortune, health problems, bad choices, etc.